Hello, welcome to the Land of Kakiak. My name is Laurel. Today I am going to kick off a flip-throughs for RightStart math. So just a little mini story time. You guys know the base of my homeschool philosophy is the Robinson curriculum, and they recommend Saxon math, but they don't even recommend it until they just say start out with just having the kids learn their math facts, like all four operations, and then go into Saxon 5-4. That's their primary recommendation. They did revise it later to say it's okay if you want to use the earlier math books from Saxon, because a lot of moms just wanted a textbook, wanted to cover a little bit more. A lot of times, math subjects covers things like money and time and measurements and little things like that along the way. So I totally get it. I like to do something more too. So Saxon math just didn't work with my oldest son. And so I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the recommendation. This is just how our family, this is just how things worked out for us. My oldest son, so I have to say, he kind of sets the tone for our homeschool, because everything is new and first with him, So he was public schooled through third grade, but I could see that he had foundational concept holes. Very frustrating. And I was like, I am going to have to actually take ownership of his education. Math seemed to be his weakest point, and I was also trying to figure out does he have ADD? How do we deal with that? I found the Robinson curriculum by watching YouTube videos. I started doing that. By this time he's in 5th grade, right? So I started him out with the flashcards, and we drilled, trying to get him to memorize those math facts. When I thought he had them mastered or enough of them, by this time I'm concerned that he's years behind in his math. Behind, whatever. But you know what I mean? That he's losing, he's not progressing. He's still at the same basic math proficiency that he was at in 3rd grade when the pandemic interrupted everything. He really hadn't progressed. We started into Saxon. I thought I had addressed that. He just doesn't have his math facts down. You know what I mean? And he just needs to memorize them. But, there may be an issue if he really has ADD with memorization. You know what I mean? So that really wasn't the best strategy for him. And things just quickly fell apart. I found that that was all just kind of there in short-term memory. And when I would retest him on his math facts, he was regressing, he understood what multiplication was and what division was, but he never could remember them quickly, So it was still, he would have to stop and count up and do all that stuff still. So it was really a heavy mental load, burden on him to get through math. The Robinson math advice is to not help them really and to let them figure it out however long it takes. You have to let them make those connections on their own. But I think because of his ADD, he was really just sitting there. If it took too much mental energy to get over, he never would get to the connection point, because by the time it took so long to get there, he would be spaced off and completely forget where he was in it. Do you know what I mean? And my husband was always like, it's just his age. Boys are just like this. They don't really wake up until they hit puberty. You know what I mean? You don't know what to think. Doctors want to give your kids stimulants. You're afraid about side effects. Some people are I don't think there's anything wrong with him. He's normal. It's just the way he is. And you have all this, and then you're well, listen, he can't get his math done. What do I do? So, because we're trying to look at the child as a whole person, right? It's not just math. There's a whole person here. And what is the root cause, or why is he not successful at this math curriculum? Again, I just don't think so. Saxon, we tried it that whole year again. I felt was a lost year. He sat there all year, and then I found out that he was cheating and just copying answers from the back of the book or whatever. Oh my gosh. So I had him repeat that whole book again the next year, right? And then I signed up I did my math assistant, which I did really like. If you have just like a normal student that doesn't have a bunch of hiccups in their educational background and like maybe, with ADD and stuff, I love my math assistant. I think that's a really good product. And I recommended it before, but maybe if we had started out, I always felt like if I started out with him from the beginning, I would have stopped and paused when I saw issues with his understanding in math and his ability to like do it himself. And we could have just rested there on it. But that's just not what happened with him. So this was like a huge challenge. Again, it was like a complete failure. Like I think he didn't even pass the end of the year test or whatever. Because I always like reassess him. You take those assessment tests with Saxon to help you place them, which is really nice. I think Nicole, the math lady, has some on her website. I'll link all these things I'm talking about in the description box in case you want to see them. Anyways, so I really I finally came to the conclusion that it wasn't the curriculum, it wasn't the RC, there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. It's just that my child actually had holes, like foundational holes. I think that way, way back to his very beginning and how he thinks about numbers and all that stuff that is underdeveloped, and that I needed to go back in, and it really came down to number sense. I felt like he was lacking number sense. So I started searching for information on that. I found, I think the site is called Building Math Minds. So the Facebook group is called Build Math Minds. I think she may have a YouTube channel also. Let me see. Yeah, Build Math Minds. I'll link her YouTube channel also. She's like a math education expert. I'm trying to remember what her background is. So her Facebook page is Build Math Minds for elementary educators, knowledge, resources, community. It's about building math minds, not creating calculators. So she's all about fostering mathematical thinking. It says that her group, so she's also goes by the recovering traditionalist. She says she is a teacher who taught math traditionally, but now teaches math meaningfully. All right, so I messaged her and I asked her about what curriculum she would recommend for a kid and that really needed help with, I really wanted to build number sense. And she recommended RightStart Math. I went and looked at RightStart Math. I'll link their webpage for you too. And the big drawback for me was it's like more expensive. You have to buy the manipulatives for it. There's a kit, which was quite expensive. I want to say it was like $200 or something. And so that was a drawback for me. And so I didn't buy it right away. I just thought on it more, and but I did eventually decide to go ahead and buy it. So what I did to save money was I went on eBay and I bought a used kit. It had almost everything in it. It was missing just like a few things. Like it was missing like their fraction chart thing. But I just kind of bought something that was equivalent off of Etsy that somebody made. And but it still saved me a little chunk. And then, because sometimes it's just a lot to buy all at one time. But I was like, okay, he's my oldest. So if I buy these things, I'm going to use them for all the kids. Like I'm not buying other math books. Because Saxon math books are expensive too. And then I bought as many books as I could used. So, my favorite place to shop for everything pretty much is Amazon, because I like to see everything in one place. But, I love that you can look up, RightStart math books, and you look up the used options on the pages. And so I did buy several of the books secondhand and saved quite a bit of money there too. So this one is brand new. This is level A, because I think I just couldn't find a used one. I like that they're spiral bound. It's really helpful. But you can buy the worksheets. They each have like worksheets that come along with it. The website has PDF version, so I think it's like $20 to buy this pre-printed, and it's $30 for the PDF. But that's a lot cheaper when it works out if I'm going to print it 3 times for 3 kids or whatever. But yeah, so all of that long story to set us up for why we are using RightStart Math. And now let's get to, so for the rest of the series that are like this, I won't have to talk so much at the beginning. I'll just get right to the flip throughs. So let me show you what level A it looks like, and just a few other things. So one thing to remember is, so like I have always used a traditional abacus like this to teach my kids their foundational number sense kind of stuff, and which is beautiful and works great. What they use is a Cotter's abacus. So there's side A, right? They can do things. They start out on this side, and then as they progress, they do things. They use it like this. So and I was a little worried. Like, so William, I made the switch. He'd been using this. We'd been working on We'd been working on math facts and stuff. And so we switched with this. I was kind of worried about switching to this, but it was totally fine. He like literally never had a hiccup. I just followed the instructions in the book, and the switch over was totally fine. So if you're worried about that because it's a different abacus, I don't know. For William, it was not an issue at all. So there's the manipulatives kit. There is also this math card game book. So in the lessons, they will refer to games, and they'll tell you which one, and you have to look it up in the math card game book. But it's all types of games that... Oh, and there's also appendixes in here, so you can make copies of this stuff for different activities too. And you use this for like all the books. So you just need one of these. It's not like there's levels of these. And to be honest, like I find myself skipping the game portions a lot. Like if they've already had us do like warm up and, kind of a teaching lesson and a worksheet, and then if they want us to play a game too, like most of the time I don't, because it just makes the lesson take too long. So if the games are part of the lesson itself, part of teaching the concept, like then I won't. But sometimes it just seems like it's just too much to do all at once. You can also split up the lessons into like 2 days too, right? Or you can have, if you have like an older kid that's done or something, ask them to play. I've asked Everett to play the game with his younger brothers before, because I figure it's good. It's a review for him. It won't hurt him to do it. And sometimes I'm busy. I've got to be teaching my like kindergartner, right? It's like, okay, I don't have like another, 15 minutes to spend playing a card game with William. But anyway, that's how so far. I just haven't always played the games. I just don't think it's always necessary. But they have all the manipulatives are really helpful for the lessons. Like they have tangrams, and they have like 3D shapes and just tons of stuff. Like honestly, I would show it all. If you really want me to show you every single piece of the manipulative kit, I will. Just leave me a comment. I'll make a separate video, which I just literally will just show you all the pieces. It would just make the video take forever. And you can look up what they are on the website, which I'll link for you. Okay, so I have not actually used lesson or level A. I believe this is, like kindergarten level, maybe first grade. And it is an open and go curriculum, so I do like that. And so they're going to go over numeration, money, place value, addition, subtraction, problem solving, geometry, time, measurement, and fractions. And they give you like a little schedule. Like they're not going over these ones, NA, for quarter 1 and 2, right? So it's just going to be whatever is in the white boxes is what you actually do. And you can just check off that they've done it. And if there's anything that's not included in the math manipulative set, they have a list of it here. Like sticky notes, a stapler, blank sheets of paper, crayons, tape, a carton, 2 eggs, glasses of water, like small objects to weigh, various containers, variety of books and hardcover books, 2 pencils of different lengths, glue, like stuff that you probably do have around the house. So how this program was developed, I thought was really interesting. I'm going to read it to you. This is just going to set you up for this whole little series, okay? This whole RightStart series. I won't read it ever to you again. Okay. So we've been hearing for years that Japanese students do better than U.S. students in math in Japan. The Asian students are ahead by the middle of first grade, and the gap widens every year thereafter. Many explanations have been given, including less diversity and a longer school year. Japanese students attend school 240 days a year. So yeah, they have a much longer school year. I think we are only required 180 days here in my state, but we are year-round homeschoolers. So we get more like, we're closer to the Japanese students, right? And how in our specific homeschool, how much math we get. So I think that does help it. As part of the RC theory is to homeschool year round, because you get that big backward slide over the summer if you stop. That's why they even do 6 days a week, he says, because even 2 days without math, especially, it's hard to get back into it. So he wants you to do it 6 days a week. Anyways, we keep going. A third explanation given is that the Asian public values and supports education more than we do. I don't think that's an issue with us homeschool parents, to be honest. A first grade teacher has the same status as a university professor. If a student falls behind, the family, not the school, helps the child or hires a tutor. Students often attend after-school classes. A fourth explanation involves the philosophy of learning. Asians and Europeans believe anyone can learn mathematics or even play the violin. It is not a matter of talent, but of good teaching and hard work. Although these explanations are valid, I decided to take a careful look at how mathematics is taught in Japanese first grades. Japan has a national curriculum, so there is little variation among teachers. I found some important differences. One of these is the way the Asians name their numbers. In English, we count 10, 11, 12, 13, and so on, which doesn't give the child a clue about tens and ones. But in Asian language, one counts by saying 10-1, 10-2, 10-3 for the teens, and 2-10-1, 2-10-2, and 2-10-3 for the 20s. Still, another difference is their criteria for manipulatives. Americans think the more the better. Asians prefer very few, but insist that they be imaginable, that is, visualizable. That is one reason they do not use colored rods. You can imagine the 1 and the 3, but try imagining a brown 8, the quantity 8, not the color. It cannot be done without grouping. Another important difference is the emphasis on non-counting strategies for computation. Japanese children are discouraged from counting. Rather, they are taught to see quantities in groups of 5s and 10s. You'll see that a lot if you do this in their abacus work. You'll see these strategies for seeing in groups are explicitly taught. For example, when an American child wants to know 9 plus 4, most likely the child will start with 9 and count up 4. In contrast, the Asian child will think that if he takes 1 from the 4 and puts it with the 9, then he will have 10 and 3, or 13. Unfortunately, very few American first graders at the end of the year even know that 10 plus 3 is 13. I decided to conduct research using some of these ideas in 2 similar first grade classrooms. The control group studied math in the traditional workbook-based manner. The other class used the lesson plans I developed. The children used that special number naming for 3 months. They also used a special abacus I designed based on 5s and 10s. I asked 5-year-old Stan how much is 11 plus 6. Then I asked him how he knew. He replied, I have the abacus in my mind. The children were working with thousands by the 6th week. They figured out how to add 4-digit numbers on paper after learning how on the abacus. Every child in the experimental class, including those enrolled in special education classes, could add numbers like 9 plus 4 by changing it to 10 plus 3. I asked the children to explain what the 6 and 2 mean in the number 26. 93% of the children in the experimental group explained it correctly, while only 50% of 3rd graders did so in another study. I gave the children some base 10 rods, none of them had seen them before, that looked like 1s and 10s, and asked them to make 48. Then I asked them to subtract 14. The children in the control group counted 14 1s, while the experimental class removed 1 10 and 4 1s. This indicated that they saw 14 as 1 10 and 4 1s and not as 14 1s. This view of numbers is vital to understanding algorithms or procedures for doing arithmetic. I asked the experimental class to mentally add 64 plus 20, which only 52% of 9-year-olds in the 1986 national test did correctly. 56% of those in the experimental class could do it. Since children often confuse columns when taught traditionally, I wrote 2,304 plus 86 equals horizontally and asked them to find the sum any way they liked. 56% did so correctly, including one child who did it in his head. The following year, I revised the lesson plans and both first grade classes used these methods. I'm delighted to report that on a national standardized test, both classes scored at the 98th percentile. Joan A. Cotter, PhD. She's a smarty, isn't she? So I liked this explanations. Look, she's got here. I won't read all these to you, but she's got some general thoughts on teaching mathematics. Just in comparison to RC, listen to her very first recommendation. Only 5% of mathematics should be learned by rote. 95% should be understood. Real learning builds on what the child already knows. Rote teaching ignores it. What is developmentally appropriate is not a simple function of age or grade, but rather is largely contingent on prior opportunities to learn. I think that's what's happened with Everett. I thought he's this old. He should be able to do this, right? I had this expectation, but I don't think that he was actually given the opportunity to learn in school. And I didn't want to continue that pattern, It says good manipulatives cause confusion at first. If a new manipulative makes perfect sense at first sight, it is not needed. Trying to understand and relate it to previous knowledge is what leads to greater thinking. Number 10, I like this one because this was totally me as a kid. The only students who like flashcards are those who do not need them. More than most other school subjects, mathematics offers special opportunities for children to learn the power of thought as distinct from the power of authority. This is a very important lesson to learn, an essential step in the emergence of independent thinking. That stood out to me a lot too. The role of the teacher is to encourage thinking by asking questions, not giving answers. Once you give an answer, thinking usually stops. These are all great. I really liked reading through these thoughts. So these are research-based. This is a research-based program. She goes over that here. There are changes. I have the second edition. I did want the most, up-to-date version. So daily lessons, they'll give you your objectives, what materials you'll need. There'll be a warm-up. There'll be an activity, explanations. Most days there's a worksheet, but sometimes there's not. Games. There's always a conclusion at the end of the lesson to go over. So it says, generally each lesson is to be done in one day and each manual in one school year. Complete each manual before going on to the next level. Here's your table of contents, just showing you very neatly, what concept is going to be covered. There's 132 lessons. And there is an end of year assessment, right? And that it's usually with the worksheets. So yeah, there's 5 actually end of year assessments. See, here's a picture of those 3-dimensional shapes. And I do like that they all come with this. They'll come with a certificate of achievement that you can give to them, which I think is super cute. I think I told you guys before, but we have a math party. Whenever we finish a math book, and we have a math party. They actually get a math cake. Make a cake. We have a party. Okay, so here's just the typical. Every lesson is just it's like a 2-page spread. Look up here for your objectives, your material list. So you get this stuff out. I will, as the kids get older, I tell them, you do the lessons with them, but I tell them to get the materials out themselves. It's just too much busy work for me. I'm trying to manage 3 kids. So when it's time for math, I tell them they get to their math book, they look at the materials list, and they go get the stuff out of the box we have of all the manipulatives. I don't know. We started doing that probably around 3rd grade. Because before that, maybe they can't read what it is. They don't know what it is. So they'll have, activities. Here's your explanations. These are for you to read as you go along. So you literally just follow along and do what they say. So this one, I bought it, but then I was like, Bo is past this stuff. So I don't know if I'm actually going to end up using it. I might end up using part of it just to teach them the scale. The scale is really fun. It's really big, but the kids like putting the weights on it to balance the equation, Those little songs, my favorite one was the one that teaches them the days of how many days are in each month. And then if they have a game down here, a lot of times it's at the end, the game. So for me, that's optional. For me, it's just based on how much time we have, how long the lesson's been and stuff like that. They're already introducing division. We're showing them. They give you arrows to show you how to use the abacus. If you don't know how to use it, you'll learn. You don't have to know beforehand. You'll learn right with them. And it's fun because it's like activities, like they're physically manipulating things. It feels like, it's another thing, it just feels like play. It feels like you're doing something. And it's so much more engaging than just doing the worksheets. Like it's, yeah, so we haven't actually done this lesson yet. Yeah, but I think I might pull it out and just do some select lessons with Bo whenever we're done with our number stories book, just because everything's going so well. I don't really want to interrupt it or make a big change right now with his in his kindergarten curriculum. But I'll assess this if I'm going to use this or not for first grade. But anyways, because some of these concepts, he's just passed them. He just already can do them mentally, so it's just not necessary. Okay. Sorry, this was such a long video. I'll be back with level B. And if you have any questions about level A, because I kind of just glanced over that really quickly, leave them in the comments and I will answer them for you. Okay, thanks. Bye.